Hello, it's Andryanna. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Juggle is Real. I know what you're thinking. You want to recharge. You want that morning routine to be locked in place. You've heard about it. Maybe you have a routine yourself, or maybe you're looking to make some changes. In this episode, we have some simple strategies, and I'm talking about very easy, very doable strategies to start your day with purpose. I have an incredible guest joining us today. Lizzie Brown is here, and she's the co founder and CEO of Yoga Wake Up. It's an app that makes mindfulness, yoga, and breath work accessible for busy people. With a passion for mental health and wellness, Lizzie blends her personal experience and business acumen to create fun, easy to follow routines that help users start their day with purpose. She is committed to making self care enjoyable and attainable, believing that small, consistent habits lead to big transformations. And I think that's what we're all here for. We've got a great discount code for you, a link in the notes for this podcast episode if you want to check it out. But this episode has all sorts of great goodies from what we can do, how we can support ourselves and our family members. So if this sounds good to you, let's just dive right in. Hey, I'm Andryanna, and this is the Juggle is Real podcast. As I share my ongoing journey from experiencing burnout to leading a more mindful and intentional life with better balance, I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started. Lizzie, welcome to The Juggle is Real. Thanks so much for being here. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well. Thanks.
Uh, I,
Excited to
I'm
chat.
s- Me too, because honestly, I know I've told you this before, but I'm really looking forward to this conversation because honestly, I can say that having a really solid morning routine has helped me so much. And I know many of us, we hear about it, we see it, and there's been books and there's been things, but you are doing something that makes it really easy and really works. And so I really want to talk about Yoga Wake Up and get into this. But before we do, I just want to get to know you a little bit better. So can you tell us about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Okay, awesome. Well, I am originally from Gainesville, Florida. I've been living in Los Angeles for 20 years. I have been practicing yoga for about as long. I think I started practicing right out of college, probably the way that a lot of people get started, which was at the gym, discovering it there, and then deepening my practice over the years and allowing it to evolve with my lifestyle. I studied PR and immediately got to work in PR for fashion brands and then moving into fitness. And I took that experience in working with fitness brands. And when I met my husband, who was an app developer, we decided to join forces and work on an app in the wellness space. And that was how Yoga Wake Up was really born. It was something that we came up with together to improve the morning routines, starting with ourselves. So oftentimes people start a business because they don't have, they're missing something that they realize should exist in the world. And we started Yoga Wake Up because I myself was having difficulty with snoozing my alarm in the morning. I would wake up snoozing 2, 3 times every morning, and he was like, there's got to be a better way. Anyone who wakes up with a partner who has a different morning routine than them, it can be a real challenge. If you wake up at different times in the morning, or if one of you is a light sleeper and the other is not. So Yoga Wake Up was a really nice way to gently get out of bed in the morning without disturbing your partner or maybe bringing them along for the ride. But the end result was a way to solve my snoozing issue. And, we built the app, and, here we are, um, just really trying to help others improve their morning routine. Because, like you said, it's such a critical part of the day. And what we do in those first waking minutes really does unfold into a better mood and a better mindset, and everything else that comes, throughout the day. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just like laughing while you're talking for like many reasons, but a few of them, like, so first of all, like my husband, he is a very, very sound sleeper. So his alarm in the morning, I'm sure it wakes the neighbor. It is so loud. And it's so funny because, he will sometimes press snooze. So then the giant like alarm shaking the whole house will like go on a few times. And I also am laughing as well because you're saying that you are on the West Coast and you're in Los Angeles, and I am on the East Coast. I'm in Ontario, Canada. And so it's mid morning for me. It is like early morning for you. So I'm just thinking like this yoga wake up is probably very important for you when you are juggling, different opportunities and
You know
speaking
it.
and all sorts of things where you have to be up at all sorts of times because we're heading into winter. It's natural to kind of want to go into this hibernation mode and want to, maybe we feel less energized, or maybe we're just kind of feeling like, well, it's, winter is here and now we can just kind of, just rest and not do anything. But that leads to not feeling as well. And it leads to us
Exactly.
wanting to sleep more. And
Exactly.
we know, seasonal affective disorder is, real. And, there's all sorts of viruses and germs floating through the air, especially with our kids around. So, walk us through yoga wake up and tell us about it, because I know we've sort of touched upon it and how it supports us, but like, what are these steps? We open
Yeah.
it up, we choose what time we want to wake up, we choose, then it supports us in saying like, this is maybe a good time to go to bed. Tell
Yep.
us, like, walk us through what the options are, because maybe there are some elements that we can add to our tool belt here.
Awesome. Yeah. So you exactly right. When you open the app, you let us know your wake up time. We recommend your bedtime, based on the hours. So, and it's something that is, that you can change, and also change day to day if needed. And then we recommend a practice every day. And all of our practices, like I said, they're between 5 to 15 minutes. There are a handful that are a little bit longer, but they're actually more often than not designed for falling asleep, because we do recognize that if you're benefiting from the morning content, you may also really enjoy and appreciate falling asleep with meditations and breath work, and any of the, other additions. There are hundreds of practices to choose from. So I always tell people, if, you don't like yoga, or if you don't like a particular kind, you can, choose something different. What's interesting is, because it's audio only, it's really about the voice, right? So and the instruction and the teacher's voices. I've gotten feedback that a lot of people find that it sounds like your best friend, or, a nurturing, like a kind, friendly voice that's, coaxing you awake, and guiding you through, these stretches and intention setting. Um, Quite a bit of breathwork options are available as well. And so, it's designed to be very accessible. If you're nursing an injury, or maybe, just, less physically active, there's plenty of content that's available for seated meditation, or lying down, or just really gentle poses. And then, one of my favorite features is that we have a handful of series that are, a couple of them are hand selected variety of teachers that are guiding you through, for example, Master Your Mornings or the Yogi Way. And those series actually build on each other and provide, a tangible lesson, or, kind of takeaways for either of those themes. So for kind of learning how to wake up like a yogi, and have, certain intentions around kindness, or community, or resilience, And then the Master Your Morning series is very clearly designed to teach you how to wake up with these practices and to break up with your snoozing habit if that's something that you're doing. Um, and yeah, you can track your progress. One of the other things that I love is that after you listen to a practice in the morning, which will go off at your desired time, at 3 p.m. that afternoon, you get a reminder as a push notification with an intention that you may have set or kind of thought about during the practice. And that's just a nice, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, it's a nice way of just re-engaging your mind in that way. And if you weren't in a good place at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for whatever reason, you see that intention, it's like, oh yeah, I that's right. I can go back to the mental state that I was in when I was doing this practice in the morning.
That's great, especially 3 p.m. Like that's the school pickup time for this household. So maybe remember what that intention was and come back to it after, a busy day, and knowing that the rest of the day, once the kids are home, that it's, a whole other slew of things ensue. So I think that's really beautiful. And I love that there are options for the evening as well. Sometimes people can find it challenging if they are trying to go to bed earlier. It's those initial steps and like, well, how I'm not going to fall asleep, or I'm going to feel restless, or I'm not going to, it's going to be boring, or whatever it is. Having something can really support you in drifting off, and having that primer that's going to set you up for, being able to wake up better in the morning, and, just drift off to sleep, and, really get into that subconscious of like whatever those intentions are, or, feeling positive about the day, regardless of what happened, and then being able to get, a more restful sleep. So I really appreciate that this is available. This is an option. For the listener who's like, hey, I get it. I know how important it is. I know how much research there is, but it's so hard. Or maybe you're thinking, I am not a morning person, because that is what I used to tell myself. Like, I'm just not a morning person. And so it would be really, really hard. And one of the main factors that you've approached is what is called sleep inertia. And so
Mhm.
I would love to know more about this, because I'm not very well versed, but many women, especially those who are juggling their work life, their family life, we struggle with sleep inertia because maybe we haven't gotten, the best sleep, or our kids are waking us up,
Mhm.
or, maybe there's a lot on our plate. So we feel groggy, we feel disoriented when we wake up. Can you tell us more about sleep inertia, how we can
Yeah.
have a mindful practice, maybe short morning yoga, breathwork, something, and that will give us that gentle start to the day?
Definitely. And just before we talk about sleep inertia, I want to also comment because one of the things you said that really stuck out to me, especially when I was, getting started with this app, is this idea of not being a morning person, because that was one of the first things that we were like, okay, we need to, our words matter, and we need to be really intentional about not saying that I'm not a morning person, but employing that growth mindset. And it's like, I'm not a morning person yet, and I can change that. And how do you change that? I think that it really is about these small, consistent habits. And to speak to sleep inertia, what happens there is, and I'm not a scientist, but there is a lot of science around and research to the effect of what happens when we snooze our alarm. That sleep that you drop back into, it's not really, you're not going to go back into deep sleep. You're just kind of delaying the inevitable of waking up. And that feeling of being groggy after you fall back asleep and wake up and fall back asleep and wake up, that's what the, sleep doctors have coined sleep inertia. And it's really something that can be avoided if we can kind of find the power within ourselves to get up at the first sign of that alarm. But that could be related to not getting enough sleep, or maybe not being consistent around your sleep, or all of these other factors, even such as like it being, it's dark in your room when you wake up. Like, one of the best ways to kind of help awaken yourself is just to get some natural light in those first minutes of waking up. So I think like that's why with yoga wake up, it's a movement in the direction of having these like small consistent habits only it's only 5 to 15 minutes, and it's gentle stretching and setting an intention for the day. So typically, when you use our app, that's what you're waking up to. You're waking up to audio guided stretching. So it's also yoga, but gentle stretching, nothing too challenging. A lot of it is actually done in bed. So you still get
Nice.
the positive
Yeah.
effect of, everybody wants to stay in bed a little bit longer. Like that's why we snooze. So you can still stay in bed a little bit longer, but instead of falling back asleep and causing yourself that that grogginess, you can wake up slowly and gently with stretching. And then the meditation element of it, of linking your movement to your breath, or maybe practicing some gratitude, or even just listening to some kind of affirmations in the morning, any of that gets your mind starting to think a little bit. I mean, you always hear people who are like, oh, don't talk to me until I've had my coffee, right? And it's because they're not in the mood, right? Like they don't
Right.
want to uh, like, trust me, just stay away from me until I'm
Yeah.
in a nicer mood, right?
Yeah.
So instead of that, or really like understanding that, we give you 5 to 10 minutes of me time to stretch, set an intention, and then go out into your day and be the friendly person that you may be after you've had a little bit of time to wake up.
100%. I mean, like it kind of primes you for the day because
Yeah.
when you're starting it in a way that is more mindful and maybe a little bit more gentle, instead of hitting snooze and then you realize like, oh crap, like I'm going to be late if I don't just like jump out of bed right now and blast into the shower or do whatever has to be
Mm-hmm.
done. So I can really appreciate that. And we're heading into daylight savings. The days are getting shorter. The morning's darker, especially in my neck of the
Totally.
woods. We got a little bit of snow already. And so
Wow.
it can be tough. It can be tough to maintain our energy levels. Of course, we want to stay cozy in bed for a little bit longer. So you're suggesting these small but impactful ways that we can adapt our morning routines that's going to help us feel more energized and feel more grounded during the day. But there is that element where we have to um, really set our intention. So do you have
Yes.
any advice for those of us listening who are like, okay, I know I want to do it, but then the morning comes and I'm still hitting snooze? Like, is there a way that we can get into the mindset of, this is going to support me, this is
Yeah.
going to make me feel better? When you are going through it or when you're developing yoga wake up, what are some ways that we can get into that frame of mind where we know,
Mm-hmm.
okay, if I do this, then I will feel better and more energized?
Yeah, well, to be honest, it doesn't happen overnight, right? Like it isn't something that happens immediately. It is really about consistency and taking small steps every day, progress, not perfect. And the same thing goes for your morning routine. So I think doing something like this, even if it's just a couple of minutes, I mean, that's the beauty of it being automated, because you set you choose what you want to wake up with, and then every morning at the same time it begins to play. And so as long as you're, like you said, being intentional about like what are the effects that I want to have, what positive impact do I want this to have, and you continue to stick with it, then you can make a good habit out of this. I mean, that's all of this. That's all this is really, when you break it down, is bad habits that we're used to versus good habits that take time to change. So it's really like, what are you doing with those first 5 minutes that you can replace with something better, and then be being flexible, being comfortable with the fact that this isn't something that's going to happen immediately. And if you get off track, you can get back on course. One of the challenging things with something like this, and really just with the way that we work and kind of we work Monday through Friday, and then we have weekends. So I actually, having read a book about, it wasn't Atomic Habits. It was about changing your schedule and like making it work for you using the Ayurvedic traditions. But it was something called weekend lag, which is we every kind of like jet lag, like that you're changing your sleep habits on the weekends, then you're going to have a harder time Monday, Tuesday, and into the middle of the week to get back on track every week. So recognizing that you have to have some flexibility, or we don't have the same thing going on every single day, but then also how important is it to you to have these better habits? And if it's important, it really comes down to setting the intention and trying to stick with it, and then continue every day improving.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Rome wasn't built in a day. Sometimes we are going to
No.
hit the snooze, but the more times that we do follow our routine, we have that evidence that supports, oh, wait, it did work, or wait,
Yeah.
I did feel better. And then once my kids woke up, I could, be more supportive, or, a couple of things were already done. And so I didn't feel so rushed. And that
Yeah.
really does support you in the rest of your day when you're starting it in a way that isn't so chaotic. And that's how I felt, because I really, really value my sleep. I still do. And so for me, I used to think, well, the longer I can sleep, then that is the better I will feel.
Mhm.
Now I know is like, well, if I choose to sleep, if I want to sleep longer, then I have to go to bed earlier. And so that was kind of how I would build in the habit was, okay, like I know I love binge watching whatever show, but instead I'm just for the next little while, I'm just going to read before bed instead of, because
Mhm.
the binge watching, you can keep hitting, keep watching, keep
Totally.
watching, keep watching. The book is easier to close because your eyes are droopy and you can put that down.
Yes.
So like for me, it was like the small things that then really helped support me. But I still like sometimes, just like so many of us, like I'm still feeling like, oh, 5 more minutes. So what would you say are some of those key elements? You've kind of touched upon it a little bit, and I know your app helps with that. What would be those key elements of a really effective morning routine for a very busy person who might only have a short block, or maybe they only have that 10 or
Totally.
15 minutes, or they don't even know because their kids are waking up at different times, and things might change on a daily basis? What would you say, if possible, make sure you're doing this or that?
Yeah, so I did touch on this before. It's so important to get a little bit of daylight. And I don't know how dark it is where you're waking up in the morning, especially as
It's dark.
we're
Yeah.
coming into a time change. And for those of, my husband wakes up really early. He's up when it's dark, at like 5:30 in the morning. And of course that it's a good case for, you hear about these kind of like wake up lights, something that can kind of
Mm.
bring a little bit of gradual light into the room, but nothing beats natural daylight. So that makes a really big difference. And you said it right. You're going to bed earlier so that you can have more sleep and a consistent routine. Having a it's less about, research shows that it's less about um, it's mostly it's the things that we do throughout the day and how we're setting ourselves up for a good night's sleep. And that is really about consistency and getting, 7 to 9 hours of sleep, depending on what you need consistently every night. And I know that can be really difficult, especially for new parents or parents of young children or people who are, maybe just really busy. And I recognize that that's not necessarily easy to shut down for 7 to 9 hours, but it does make a difference in how the rest of the day unfolds, because when we are getting enough consistent sleep, I mean, it sounds so simple, but it makes such a huge difference. um yeah, and I I would say, drink up. Like I keep a glass of water next to my bed, so I drink a glass of water as soon as I wake up. Just little, I mean, that's super simple things that can help you kind of even just have a routine, even if it's
Mhm.
just 3 or 4 things that you do every day. It makes a difference. Um, and one of the things you mentioned before too, just thinking about kids, I think it's so important that we set an example by doing. And they need to see that, mom and dad are taking, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or doing some things that they need to do for their mind, for their mental health, for, to take care of themselves before they move into the day. And I think that can also be helpful for kids to see how even if it's doing like a short 5 minute meditation, whatever kind of speaks to you to help you get that relaxing time before everything gets started, jumping into the emails or jumping into, like kind of running around chaotically. Like, what is the message that you're sending to your kids? It's
Sure.
saying like, hey, just set your alarm 5 minutes before you get out the door. Like that's just going to elicit a stress response. And, you want them to come to a place where on their own, where they are feeling calm and ready for the day. And that's the best we can do, right? Is lead by example.
Yes, 100%. And as
Yeah.
you're saying that, I was just thinking like we understand the importance of routine with our children, especially. And, we have a morning and after school and evening routines chart. Like I got it
Great.
laminated and like there's these steps. And so maybe we don't have to go to that effect and have like the cartoon drawings, but like what are those two or three things that you can say that are totally doable, that don't take a lot of time? It's like this is what I would like to do. And then knowing what that is, knowing how simple it is. I mean, I love that you're saying like we can just go back to basics. Let's try to get to bed a
Yeah.
little bit earlier. Let's put some water next to us. I set my coffee, like I set it the night before so that when I wake up, it's
That
ready.
smell is probably,
Yes, I can, like it's
lovely experience.
wafting. Yeah. And so my alarm goes off and then I hear the coffee maker make this little beep and I'm like, okay, well now I have to get up because the coffee's ready. Like it's fresh. So these little things, like it doesn't have to be complicated. We don't need all sorts of, tools and all of the latest and greatest in terms of equipment and all these things.
Totally.
But this mindfulness in the morning can lead into the rest of our day. So can you share, just because we are in this really busy time of year, fall can bring additional pressures. We've got them every day, but there's a lot happening at school, at work, with the extracurriculars. We're preparing for the holidays. So beyond our mornings, how can a mindfulness practice really just be incorporated into our daily routines, even when we feel too busy to stop? Any advice there that you can support us with?
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's also the beauty of having something that is, set to do every morning, is it does set the tone for the day. So then when it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you are, experiencing that like midday slump, you have these tools that work, that you can go back to, and you can, whether it's like sitting in stillness and taking 5 minute break to meditate, or if you are driving from one place to another and you could be really kind of scattered, like I have to get there, maybe you're running late. But something I like to do is just like turn off the music and kind of take that time to reflect and be quiet. I think that like when we incorporate daily yoga and meditation, even at like this kind of bite-sized level, it becomes something that you can easily incorporate whenever you need. And it's just like this kind of toolkit that you can reach for whenever you kind of have a stressful moment. And if you don't know that exists, then it's just not something you reach for. But once you recognize the feeling that you get after you experience that, then you know exactly how to get back to that. And that makes such a difference in moments or like heightened stress. It's like, okay, well, wait, what do I need to do right now to calm myself down? What can I reach for? And it may be different for different people. Like maybe it's, you know, instead of reaching for a drink, or like reaching for like a alcohol or something that you kind of maybe like in the past has calmed you down, you can be thinking, oh wait, I don't need that. I can actually take 5 minutes to self-soothe in a more natural way. And so I think
Mhm.
it's really just a matter of like having access to that and knowing that it's there and knowing how to turn it on. And I don't mean, by pressing play, but that too. Just
Yes, no
knowing
doubt.
how knowing that these things are here and that you can benefit from them. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
I
like
think
thinking
that's
about
so
breath work.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
that, like just most of us don't know about, because I didn't know until I, got to know all of these different teachers that were introducing these practices to our app. But like being able to do a box breath where you're, inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding for 4. And it's like, oh, if I do that when I'm having difficulty falling asleep and I know what I can do to help myself fall asleep, it's really empowering.
Yeah. Or like stuck in traffic, or when you know
Or
what
stuck in
those
traffic.
triggers are, just like to be able to examine and say, okay, what is not working, or where am I seeing those areas where maybe the emotions are heightened, or maybe there's like certain times when you notice, oh, like I'm having that like afternoon crash where I feel totally exhausted. So instead of like grabbing coffee or grabbing like something sugary, maybe it's instead like, okay, I'm actually gonna stand up and move from my desk, and I'm gonna take a
Mhm.
few deep breaths, or I'm gonna go outside and get a little bit of fresh
Mhm.
air, or like walk around the block for like 5 minutes. I think when we
Totally.
can see what options are available, we can decide what works best for us. But it's not until we examine it to see, okay, well, what is working? What's going well? What could use some tweaking? And then what can I replace, or what can I introduce? Because I know our days are full, and we put a lot in there, but there's always pockets. And so when we can remove things that aren't working, oftentimes it frees up a little bit of space
Hmm.
so that we can reintroduce, something that might be more supportive. And it's not to say that just because we're trying something that it has to last forever. These things can change and can fluctuate, but that there are options available to us. As we wrap up, I've really loved our conversation, but could you leave our listeners, if there's one final piece of advice or maybe a prompt that we can explore about how we can re-examine our morning routine, or how we can incorporate more mindfulness in our lives, what would you suggest, or what would be a really great starting point that we can look to today after we finish listening?
Yeah. Well, I already touched a bit on consistency, but that is, I think, so important. And that is just simply moving in the direction of progress, just small steps every day. And then I think what pairs well with that is this idea of, you know, giving yourself grace throughout the process. So recognizing that I mean, the juggle is real, right? Like just
Yeah.
recognizing that we are all dealing with so much all at once and remembering to, be patient with yourself. These things don't happen overnight, but if you can just make small steps in the right direction every day, I find that when you look back, 6 months back or even weeks back, you can, see the progress you've made, and that's really motivating. And that's what this is about. So just
Give
keep at
yourself
it.
grace and keep
Yeah.
going. Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you being
Thank
here,
you.
and I can't wait to see what's in store for Yoga Wake Up.
Thanks so much.
So grateful that Lizzie spent some time with us, and she's actually included a link with a discount that she's provided that I'm going to throw in the notes for this podcast episode. Everyone gets a free trial of Yoga Wake Up, a free 7-day trial. But if you choose to subscribe, you will get 35% off your year with a subscription to Yoga Wake Up, 35% off to help you stay motivated, to stay accountable to yourself, and to get that morning routine really solidified now before the weather turns too cold, before you might have snow in your neck of the woods. The mornings are darker, and it might be tough to maintain that energy throughout the day. So definitely check that out, and definitely share this with a friend, someone who could need that anchor point, maybe have an accountability buddy so you can have your mornings and have that routine together. Share it with them. If you enjoyed the episode, I would really appreciate if you could rate it. You could write me a short and sweet review in Apple Podcasts. And of course, make sure you're subscribed for more. You can always reach out to me by email. That is in the notes for this episode as well. And you can stay in touch on Instagram. My handle is Andryanna G. That's ANDRYANNAG. Until the next time, take good care.